Did you see that car there on what we call the billboard? That was the old BMW V12 LMR that was victorious here in 1999. BMW have had a troubled run on their return in the GT2 category. There is still one of their two cars running. However, they will be back. Oh, that was tight there for car number 7, Tom Christensen, coming past the 75 Porsche. And Hugues de Schonack and his staff look tired and weary, but they're an hour and 3/4 away from completing it in their first run at Le Mans in a Peugeot works-supported 908.
Their other car, the 6 car, is currently running 6th, second in the petrol-powered stakes, but many laps behind the 009 Aston Martin. So I think that first in class, as they like to call it, is probably out of reach unless the Aston has some issues.
Let's change gears and talk LMP2 for a moment, because a name familiar to us all, a guy who won here on debut, is on the podium. Let's hear from Andy Wallace. He's with Chris. Chris?
Andy Wallace standing by, getting ready to get back in for his last drive in the 25 car. Andy, this is your 21st start here, right?
Yes, it is.
And you won overall. You've won multiple times in classes. How many podiums have you had in those 21 starts?
Well, I'd have to count them up on the list. I've forgotten, I don't know exactly, but several anyway. But of course, to do that, you've got to have the right team, the right teammates, and the right car. So I've been very lucky.
Well, it looks like you're going to get another podium today. Over those 21 starts, you were here when they didn't have the chicanes. You were doing 240, 250 miles an hour on the back straightaway. Now they're essentially doing the same time around this racetrack with the chicanes. Tell us a little bit about the evolution that you've seen over the years.
Well, the first thing you need to know is when you're in an LMP2 car and one of those diesel cars comes by, it is staggering how fast they are on the straight. It's something like 25 miles an hour quicker than us. And that doesn't sound like a whole hell of a lot, but it really is when you're already doing nearly 200 yourself. It's pretty impressive. Well, the cars have got a lot more physical to drive than they were in those days. Also, pretty much you drive them flat out. You're not worried about the mechanical side. If it breaks, it would have broken however you drove it, whereas in the old days you had to look after the car. But now with modern paddle shifts and sort of high-revving, buzzy engines, it's extremely busy. In the old days, each gear was a long pull. So I just think it's a lot more manic now. That's how to describe it, I think.
Well, you've had another good drive. You're going to hopefully get out here and grab another podium. So why don't you go get your helmet on and have some fun?
I'll do that, but you never say you get a podium because it's not over till it's over. This is a very long race.
Well, hopefully I didn't jinx you.
No doubt that his mother and father-in-law, Max and Jan Crawford, will be watching from Denver, North Carolina. We say hi to the Crawfords, and your son-in-law's doing a good job.
I'm going to go visit them tomorrow. They don't know that yet, but they might know it now.
For Audi, now it's just pacing themselves, running out the clock, not making any mistakes, taking care in traffic. They have everything to lose at this point for doing something stupid, but those guys are buttoned down. They know what they're doing. Team order is going to be to just bring it home, be smart.
Andy hit on what I think is a key thing of the change of the cars and so forth, and that is how much more physical the modern car is to drive than even, not when I started, but even mid my career. These cars do things so much more abruptly. They brake harder than the cars used to brake. They certainly corner much harder than the cars used to corner. With the advent of paddle shifters and the things that they have nowadays, the car itself is unbelievably hard on the driver, I think.
And the nice part with the paddle shifts, you've gotten away from those forced over revs on the downshift, and on the upshifts, it's a lot better on the transmissions. I know that's one of the things they're considering for Grand Am for next year, trying to help reduce the costs on that side of things. And
I think it's a good idea. I think there's an initial outlay that certainly the teams will have to invest in, but when you think about just one blown engine will pay for that, so why not go in that direction? It's modern technology, it's easily available and now quite affordable.
Gearbox cost as well goes way down with the paddle shifter. You're not going through dog rings, you're not breaking gears nearly as much. The wear on everything is less.
And with that, it's nice to see that the ACO has enforced these rules at cockpit temperatures and putting some focus back. Yeah, it has gotten more physically demanding on the drivers, but at the same time, they've been focused on, what do we need for the drivers, and keeping the cockpit cooler like they have those rules that we've seen for the last few years of making sure that they're not getting overheated. I mean, because those cockpit temps, even within our cars, I mean, they can be 120, 125 degrees, and that'll burn you down pretty fast.
Yeah, we used to come out all the time out of the car with your right foot blistered. You know, your foot's burned, your heel's burned, your right outside of your knee from rubbing up against the transmission tunnels burned. And the reaction back then was, well, you know,
Toughen up.
Toughen up, yeah.
We've just seen a sequence of shots of GT1 cars, and if you missed the news earlier in our broadcast, folks, this is the final year we'll see the GT1 category here at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. This is the quote from the official ACO press release. With 8 GT1 cars here and only a couple on average in each Le Mans Series race, the ACO has decided to no longer allow GT1 cars in the 24-hour, and there are numerous reasons given. There's another point to this. As a result, the ACO has created a GT Endurance category with a single set of regulations in effect from next year through 2013, and the regulations are based on 09 regs with some modifications, and we'll get into those technical specs later on. They have created a GT Endurance Pro, like a professional category, and a GT Endurance Amateur division, and they're going to grandfather in some of the cars. They're going to make it a little more interesting, and they're going to pare it back to just one GT class. So the ACO always looking to refine things, and you have to say they watch the American Le Mans Series very closely and look at what the ALMS is doing and take the best from a little bit of everywhere. So those 2011 regs being publicised just a couple of days ago at Le Sarthe at the traditional annual ACO press conference, and we'll have more from the circuit when we come back. We know many of you turn on at different times, so let's bring you up to date right back at the start. 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon French time, and it was Peugeot 134. Unfortunately, Nigel Mansell did not see much of the race. He was carried to the ambulance but later released and is okay. His 2 sons did not get to drive, and that was a deflated rear tyre that sent him spinning, and this was the biggest talking point in the early hours with Peugeot and Lamy and drama.
Yeah, something came adrift in the right front corner. Pedro had to drag that car back to pit lane. They looked at the monocoque. Too much damage. Game over. That was a shocking moment in this race for Peugeot. Sébastien Bourdais, the pole sitter, never even got to sit in the race car today.
And that's what we've seen ever since that moment. We fast forward to hour 5. And check this out. Tom Christensen, the 8-time winner, and Andy Priaulx, a 3-time World Touring Car champion, just a mix-up. Andy said I was giving Tom the inside line, and Tom had already committed to taking that outside line.
And of course, Andy Priaulx had a flat left front tire. That's why he was so slow.
And Dr. Wolfgang